Thank you. It's great to be back here, and I've come back a few times since I graduated, and there's always one thought I have every time I come here, and those of you who were in my class or before know this place beats the hell out of Barrows Hall. I know that's 20-year-old news, but for those of us who were in Barrows Hall, we'll never forget it. It's really an honor to be here. I wanted to, in my presentation today, do a few things. I kind of wanted to walk you through a little bit of what my company, Annie's, is about. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some things I've learned. So I tried to summarize three key themes, which I'll try to hit on during the speech. And when you see them at the end, you'll say, wow, those are obvious. However, when you're going through it and growing a business, sometimes they don't seem so obvious. So maybe I can cut to the chase and give some good ideas. And then I want to also thank some important people that had a big influence on me here at Berkeley and just in my career. So first, just a little bit about me. So that's me. In about 1972 or something like that, I love those glasses, and I'm sure I'm eating some hideously disgusting cereal, Count Chocula, Frankenberries. I grew up in Chico, and it was a farming family, very conventional agriculture. One of my jobs in the summer was to stand out in rice fields and wave a big flag so the airplane would know how to line up to crop dust me with all the nasty stuff. So I got a dose of that every time the thing came over. It was like, woof. So it's important to know that because some of that is embedded in my DNA, and I think has driven me to create the kind of company and try to drive Annie's to what it is. The other interesting thing is that the first big lesson I learned at Berkeley-Haas was actually one I learned to get into Berkeley-Haas. And it was the biggest lesson, I think, that an entrepreneur can ever learn, and that is just perseverance and not taking no for an answer. Because I applied not once, not twice, but 3 times. And on the third time, I got in, and maybe they just got tired of reading my application, but one of my favorite people in the world to this day is Fran Hill, who is the director of admissions here, who many of you know, I think. Trust me, I've sent her more than one card in my career since then saying thank you for looking past my 3.000 to the 7th decimal point and seeing some promise and potential in me. But that was really huge. So I want to now move on and talk a little bit about Annie's and the company, its creation, and then the intersection with me and what we've done since then. So the company was founded in 1989 in Wakefield, Massachusetts, and the idea was Annie and her husband at the time wanted to create products that would give moms and parents a clean alternative to the kinds of conventional foods that I grew up eating and that still are wildly prevalent today, even though natural organic foods is a much bigger thing. And they also wanted to infuse into that business to do everything different than conventional. And so they really positioned the original product, we call it Purple Box finally at Annie's, around the idea of being the exact opposite of everything at that time that craft was. And we called ourselves the anti-craft. So we had a purple box, not a blue box. The cheese inside was white because there's no yellow milk coming out of a cow. There were no artificial ingredients, no flavors. The packaging was soy-based ink printed on recycled cardboard. It was also a product that was coming from a company that had social responsibility and sustainability baked into the DNA of the brand. And I'll talk a lot more about that later. And so I found Annie's in 1998, actually. It was 4 years after I graduated from Haas. When I was here, I helped start a specialty national organic food company that grew up to about $10 or $11 million and had all the entrepreneurial struggles you could possibly imagine. I was running it full time while I was a second-year student here. And so I had this amazing entrepreneurial experience that was rooted in all the things I was learning from Berkeley. And one of the things I remember in my freshman year, or my first year, was Ray Miles' organizational behavior class. And how many of you took Ray Miles? Okay, all right, he was great. How many of you remember this thing called the Greiner curve? Does anybody remember the Greiner curve? Am I the only freak that remembers the Greiner curve? Okay, so the Greiner curve in a nutshell, in a non-professorial way, is that most companies follow similar development paths, and you can, by understanding how companies develop from entrepreneur to kind of functional organization to matrix, you can anticipate these paths, and as companies grow, you can predict what problems you're going to have, and then in theory, you can change the way you're going to do things so that you can go through those phases of growth, because it's very hard to grow a company. I think I missed the part of that said that you're supposed to use it to predict your problems, because I basically pulled the Greiner curve out every time I smashed into one of those walls and said, what just happened to our company? And then it helped me figure it out. But that was one of the things I took away. So in 1998, Annie's was about $5 or $6 million in revenue, and it was just mac and cheese. It was in Wakefield, Massachusetts, and they had basically run out of money. And I had this other little company based here in California, and I had this great idea that I was going to invest in this brand because I fell in love with Annie's, and it wasn't because I loved mac and cheese, although a lot of people think that's it. It's because I do eat a lot of mac and cheese, I guess. But it was because the brand stood for something that I thought was very important, and it's rooted in all the culture and values that I got here from Berkeley, and I'll talk more about that in the brand in just a moment. So the first lesson I wanted to have a discussion about is the importance of identifying core values and mission and articulating those. So when I got to Annie's, it was about 7 people in the company. The board of directors had 7 or 8 people. It was one of those classic situations. I'm sure many of you have been involved in startups. It's like you have a board meeting. Everybody says, here's all the things you should do. And you said, hey, there's more of you sitting here than there are out there. Why don't you guys go do it? And so, but anyway, we were very small. And the point of that was we had this culture in the company that was transmitted by native language. So it was really easy to sit down and pull everybody together and say, hey, here's what we stand for. Here's the things that are important. And I had grown up before I came to Berkeley and worked for a big bank. It was B of A. And we had culture and values all over the wall. It was on our business cards. It was everywhere, but I was so jaded because we never actually lived it. So I was jaded at the idea of actually writing this stuff down and putting it on a wall in your building or your business, because I had seen that not work. And so our company grew from about 5 or 6 million when I got there and helped put some money in it. We kind of doubled the business, but let's say over the next 5 years we grew to about 40 or 50 million. It was only at that time that people inside the company, as we got bigger, started saying, you know what? We have this great culture. You need to write it down. You need to talk about your core values. They can't be just on the package. We need to live them in the way that we communicate to the outside world. So we did that. We created this. I wrote these core values. They're in that's basically my set of core values laid over the top of what Annie stood for when I got there. And you can see it's focused on authenticity and trust and simple ingredients and things we'll talk about in a minute. Transparency, telling people where stuff comes from and having them actually believe you're a company with high enough integrity to actually do it that way. We're a socially responsible company, and then most importantly at all, respect, fairness, honesty, integrity. Once we put these down and wrote these down like this and then created this mission statement, which was our articulation of that in as few words as we could, our business just took off. It was crazy. We attracted better people. We could talk to our customers in a way that they saw that we were a different kind of company. And we really, really grew. And so my lesson for that is any company starting or any company growing that hasn't done that yet, take the time to really spend on that, because it's going to make a huge difference in what you want to be, and the world will understand you better. So now let's shift a little bit to what the business is. So today we're a leading national organic food company. We're about right now about 200 million, growing about 20% a year in revenues. You can see over the last 5 years, the business has grown really significantly. We've also started to develop very strong profit model. We have high margins. Our business generates a lot of cash, which we've been investing in the business to grow. And right now we have #1 market position in natural and organic across 4 core categories: macaroni and cheese, snack crackers, graham crackers, and fruit snacks. And so that's a little bit about what we are. We're in almost 30,000 stores across the US. Our business is natural retailers, Whole Foods, all the way down to little independent co-ops, Walmart, Target, grocery stores. We do a little bit of food service, but that's what the company is today. And our strategy for success is so simple. I've actually often talked to people and said, please don't share it. But it's simple, and it's been the same for a long time. And one of the lessons that I learned at Berkeley, and one of the people that I want to acknowledge, is Jerry Engel. So I was here when the Lester Center was just getting going, and I got sucked into the vortex of the Lester Center and startups and culture and all that. And one of the things I remember from Jerry when I was in one of his small classes and we were talking about how you write a business plan, my experience before had been I wasn't very focused. I was an entrepreneur who thought I could do everything, so the business I was already working on was going to try to conquer 18 different things. So I learned the idea of being focused and just keep it simple. If you can describe it to an investor or to your employees or whatever, you're going to have a much greater odds of success. So what we do is we identify big conventional packaged foods categories. This one up here is fruit snacks, and you can see Scooby-Doo is the at the time of this was put together, was the #1 fruit snack item. Full of a lot of ingredients that a lot of moms and dads don't like, but their kids want the product, and they feel that they're not letting their kid participate if they can't have it. And so then offer a simple natural organic alternative to that, and then make it widely available. It's really that simple. So thank you, Jerry, for helping me understand that key message. And then our growth strategy over the years has also been very simple and very straightforward and very consistent. So we're taking these big trends that we're leveraging, which is consumers are interested in eating healthier. Consumers now, much more than ever before, understand the relationship between what they eat and their overall health. They're becoming more and more aware of ingredients, issues, potential connections between preservatives, artificial flavors, colors, synthetic growth hormones with potential health impacts later in life. And so they're looking to eat healthier. That's stimulated demand. It's stimulated growing chains, natural organic retailers, grocery stores getting on the bandwagon. And so we go after that with 4-prong approach. The first is to just expand our distribution, get into places where people want to shop. That's our single biggest opportunity even today. Because when dads too, but 85% of our primary shoppers are moms buying for the household. They want it to be easy, they want it to be where they are, and they want it to be convenient. Second strategy is improving placement. So when we first started being in grocery stores, getting in grocery stores, and when I got there in 1998, we had a little grocery distribution in the Northeast and a little bit in the San Francisco Bay Area. But most of it was in natural food sections, which are these dusty little sections back by the mop closet and just awful, you know? And so we were one of the very first brands in natural and organic that made the bold statement, said, you know what? We can compete right next to the big guys. That's where we want to be. And so we would walk in and present, and I remember going into a number of chains and just getting laughed out of the room. That we would say that we should be on the shelf, in this case, when mac and cheese next to Kraft. We just got laughed out of the room in many places. However, there were some retailers that understood it and put us in, and we succeeded. And so we've been doing that, and especially over the last 5 to 7 years, that's been a big part of our growth strategy. When we get into the mainline aisle, our share is very significant, and we're driving incremental growth, profit, and we're bringing consumers into the category that want that kind of experience. Driving innovation, I'll talk a lot more about innovation in a minute. That's a big part of our strategy. And then just increasing household penetration awareness. We don't do any conventional advertising, although I say that now, and now social media is so prevalent that it is conventional, right? But we don't do any carpet bombing, no FSIs, you know, the thing that bothers you, it drops in your newspaper on Sunday morning. We don't do any TV, but we do a ton of social. And our brand, an authentic, transparent brand, is a perfect brand to leverage that kind of medium, and it's been an amazing equalizer for us with the big brands that we compete against. Our innovation strategy has been very important. So when I got there, we were all mac and cheese. One of the first ideas I had, because I thought the brand didn't stand for pasta, I thought the brand stood for all these really emotional things like mom's love for her kids and doing better for the planet and caring and nurturing. And so to me, if that could work on mac and cheese, why couldn't it work somewhere else? So we said, why not a cheddar bunny? You know, if you had Pepper Charm Goldfish out there, which is a great company and great product, but there was no natural organic alternative to that. So we created a cheddar bunny. We did the kind of market research that we did at that time, which was popping up a little table out in front of a Whole Foods over in Mill Valley with a bowl and saying, what do you think? And anyway, it took off. It turned into a huge hit, very scientific. You know, we're much more sophisticated now, but the truth is sometimes that's the best research anyway, no matter how sophisticated you are. But anyway, that was very successful. So that was a new platform for us. So that would be a big idea. So since then, we've expanded into grams and fruit snacks and bars and more recently into frozen entrees, microwavable convenience products. And then we have a lot of smart extensions, which are kind of cute things that extend off. It could be flavors. It could be a thing like Bernie's Farm, which is a new subline. You can see that up at the top right. That's an aged down product that appeals to kids who are really interested in colors and shapes and cool products and crackers that are colored with vegetable coloring and things like that. And an optimization, this is probably the most important strategy from an innovation standpoint. We know from the very beginning, we've always felt like we were one footprint away from one of the big guys just squishing us, because we knew if we were only separated and differentiated on natural and organic, that's a positioning that you can catch, right? So we've been obsessed with spending about half of our money every year spent on making our current products better. A lot of that goes to how we source and how we formulate, and I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. But innovation is a big driver for us. And if you can see this is an eye chart, but the whole idea of this is like we compete in a lot of different categories. In every one of those categories, virtually without exception, we're growing vastly faster than the category because of those 4 strategies I mentioned earlier. And what that's doing for us is it's getting us around the grocery store. That's raising awareness of the brand with consumers. And so if somebody finds us in, you know, cheddar bunnies, for example, why shouldn't they, if they have kids that are interested, be looking at mac and cheese and other categories we're in? So well, that's important. And we're also growing the business for our retailers. We're viewed as a category expert, category captain in natural and organic for a lot of retailers, and an expert witness on that whole idea. So the third thing I want to talk about is the integration of brand, culture, values, mission, and brand, and how important that is. So at Annie's, we have this saying, we call it eat responsibly, act responsibly. The brand, what the brand stands for, its values and the products are all the same thing. Connected, consumers understand that, that's why they trust us. So on the eat responsibly side, we'll talk about it. We have these real and authentic roots. Annie started the company. Bernie was her pet rabbit at the time. When she was so shy, the other founders of the company wanted her to be on the package, right, with a shot of Annie. She's the shyest person you've ever met in your life, and she said, no way. But she had her brother Bruce actually draw that little sketch of Bernie, and that became the icon. And so Bernie was this little Dutch rabbit, and he's still a big part of what we do, obviously. We make premium, great tasting products. So we were one of the first natural organic companies that said, it's not just good enough to be clean, healthier ingredients. It's got to taste great, because it doesn't matter in food, if it doesn't taste good, it won't last. You'll get people to try it once and then you're done, especially foods that are focused on kids in the family. We use simple, natural, and organic ingredients, and this is an area where we've really invested over the years, and a lot of the innovation I've talked about has come up. So we buy, for example, we source all of our organic dairy comes from a company called Crop Cooperative, which is the largest organic dairy cooperative in the US. The brand that they own is called Organic Valley. Many of you probably know that milk. We're a big user of their products. We've converted in the mid 00s. One of the big decisions we make was to move to all organic wheat. And we did that because we knew that that's where consumers wanted us to go. But we also did that because our values as a company support organic agriculture, and we knew the impact we were having by supporting conventional agriculture in that area. And so now we have around 25,000 acres of wheat we've converted in the upper Midwest plains, and supporting local farm economies is really important to us. Organic Valley is not the cheapest place to buy organic cheese, but they have their network of farmers averaging 70 cows or whatever, provides their farmers stable pay over time. They can make a good living doing it, and it's the best socially positioned source for us. That's very important because our consumers expect Annie's to buy like that, and they expect us to be focusing down to the ground and to the source like that. And then on the last piece, socially responsible practices. So we have a number of programs we developed over the years that just get bigger every year. School garden programs, the environmental awareness programs. We fund sustainable agricultural scholarships every year for grad students and undergrad students, and have been doing that every year at increasing dollar amounts. That's all integrated into the brand, and it's why consumers trust us. So that's the eat responsibly part. The act responsibly part is seeing us as being integrated and a very important part in driving and making the world a better place. And I think that this is the most important part of what the brand stands for. And when I was at Berkeley here, I had a professor, Chris Banks, who taught human resources and organizational classes. Did anybody take Chris Banks? You guys know of her? What's funny about that was, at the time I was here, it was a very unpopular class. You know, people didn't want to go to it. It wasn't sexy like finance or marketing or whatever, and they looked at it as something that you just had to do. I found it to be amazing, and only at Berkeley would you get a professor like that. She was the only woman on the board of Whole Foods Market at that time, and Whole Foods Market had 30 stores. They were, well, you know what Whole Foods Market is today, but they were integrating their culture into their brand in these amazing ways. And I was able to suck a lot of learning out of that informed the way that I thought a company's culture should build and grow. So I want to thank Chris for being a big influence on me and connecting me with that kind of place. What other business school could you go to where you would have had that kind of ground level opportunity? Anyway, just amazing. And so the 3 points I've tried to make here are, formalize mission and value. That's very important. Build a simple strategy, execute it consistently over and over is a great way to grow the business, and then integrate brand and culture as one. And so that's what we've done at Annie's, and it's worked. And so lastly, I want to show you this. This is a very emotional picture for me because about 2 years ago we took Annie's public, and we listed Annie's on the New York Stock Exchange, and this picture was taken. When you list on a public company, the market closes the day before. They hang up your artwork and your banner, and then it's up there all night, and they shine these lights on it. And so that was the picture the night before we actually started trading. And the reason it was so emotional for me is because when we took Annie's public and we were going through the roadshow, there weren't a lot of companies like Annie's. There were some before, so Whole Foods, Chipotle. Obviously, Google has a big social mission. If you read our S1 document, the first thing we talk about is culture and values. That's the most important thing. And when our bankers were talking to us about going public, they said, I don't know if I'd lead with that. How about we lead with net revenue growth and addressable market and EPS potential? But we felt very strongly that we were different. And the reason that we felt that was because the world is changing. The consumers are changing. Right now, about 1/3 of households are run by millennial parents. A lot of you probably either have millennials as kids or understand the research about those. By 2020, 2/3 of those households are going to be run by millennials. And those people are looking for brands in every category of the store in consumer products that delivers against what they want, obviously in terms of total value and quality. But they also want to know that the company has a soul and that they're making the world a better place. And so when we were very successful in the IPO, we had a blue chip list of investors that we allocated shares to, and before we allocated to them, we picked up the phone, which was also very unusual, and we said, we'll give you a good allocation, but we need you to buy into what the mission, the vision. Do you buy into it? And they did, and we've had very little turnover in our top investors because of that. And to me, that was a very big tectonic shift showing. You had capital saying in big ways, I believe that there's companies out there that can change the world, and I believe that that's the way to build a brand, and I believe that's the way to create value for my shareholders. And I think the future, there's lots of reason to be optimistic about the future if capital's flowing to opportunities in companies like this. And places like Berkeley are creating these companies. And I think it's something to be very proud of. When I came back to Berkeley one time in about 2002 or 2003, I remember we were building this company and with all the things that we've just talked about. And I remember some students stood up and said, so what do you think about triple bottom line companies? And I said, that's a really interesting question. What I was really saying in my head is, what the hell is that? I've never even heard of that before. I've never heard that term before. Then I said, you explain it. And they're all, oh, I guess we're one of those. But the point is, here at Berkeley, they were talking about triple bottom line companies way before business schools and everyone else was. And I think that's what's exciting about Berkeley and why it's the future is so promising here, because Berkeley continues to press forward in that way and change the world. And so I want to thank Fran and Jerry and Chris, and I want to thank Dean for having me here today. And all of you, just thanks for the time. And if you put in a good word for Annie's with your friends, that'll always be appreciated also. So, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. So I can take a few questions. I think we have time for a few questions if there are any. Right there.
Is this thing on? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave Crawford, class of '94. So I'm just curious, you see a lot of mission statements, but as you remarked regarding your earlier experiences, often they're not implemented throughout the organization. So maybe you could just mention 3 ways. Maybe it's the things that you decide not to do that aren't reflective of your brand, or how did you actually and continually instill those in the company's DNA?
Yeah, it's a great question. You have to be very selective of what you do. So brand affiliations, there's a lot of people a lot of other companies that would like to affiliate with the brand. You have to be very selective about that. I'd say the most important thing is making sure that you're, throughout every part of the organization, your sourcing group, your people group, how you interview, what things are you looking for in the people, it all needs to be integrated. So we talk a lot about culture all the time at Annie's. I'll be honest, in a fast-growing company, it's hard. Like it's hard for us, it's hard for any company. We have very well-defined culture and core values. Our company has grown, like 50% of our employees right now, well, actually we just bought a manufacturing facility, our first plant ever, which is in Joplin, Missouri. We added another 140 employees there about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But before that, we had about 125 employees. Half of those hadn't been with the company for more than 2 years. So we've really added. So that's the hardest part, is making sure, every time somebody comes into the company, the culture changes. It can change for the better or it can change for the worse. It's like a big pot of soup that you're adding ingredients to. And so what we have to do as leaders, me, my team, and the whole organization, is we have to be very cognizant that your culture can shift and you may not perceive it shifting away from what you really stand for. So we talk a lot about it. We reinforce behavior. If we see people not respecting each other or a competitor or whatever, we call it out. But we're not perfect, man. I'll tell you, that is the biggest challenge for fast-growing companies, is to maintain truth to culture, and we try to do that. But we just integrate in everything we do. Yes.
Hi, Dan Hellman, class 88. Would you say that, would you go so far as to say that if a company were to start today trying to do what you did, that you can safely recommend that they go public?
Wow. I would say I never, when I got involved with the A's in the very beginning, I never, ever thought that we'd be a public company. I assumed that capital wouldn't value the things that I valued. It would value only one thing, which is very important, by the way. We got growth and profit is huge. But my whole thing, and I learned this from John Mackey, who's the CEO of Whole Foods, he's turned that whole thing upside down, which is like, if we live to our values, we source the right way, we treat people the right way, we're positive in our communities, we build a brand that trusts like that, sales and profit will happen. And that virtuous cycle continues. So I would say when I started here, no, I didn't think that that would ever be a possibility, but I think the markets are looking for that now, and they're looking for brands that resonate with this audience in a very powerful way, and I think ours does, and there's others that'll come in the future too.
It almost sounds like you're saying that food is kind of a safe bet, but maybe beyond that, they can think about it.
You know, I don't have a lot of experience outside food, so I don't know about that, but in food is a way, the interesting thing about food is it's like so personal, right? And people can relate, so they can relate to the fact that when we're raising organic wheat or we're using organic dairy, that we're not putting all this nasty stuff into the animals or into the ground, and they can see and really feel that, and then they can taste it. It's a very personal experience. The act of mom or dad making food for their kids and family is a very personal experience, and I think natural and organic plays to that obviously really well. So. Sure, question? Okay.
So have you gone global, either selling or
Yeah, so the question is, have we gone global selling or sourcing? And the answer is not really. We do have a business in North America, up in Canada, that's developing. We've looked at it, and we do think that the brand could go to the EU, for example. But we have so much growth opportunity here in North America that it's hard to say that that should be a priority now. Over time, it will. In terms of sourcing, we do some global sourcing. The vast majority of what we do is domestic. We like that idea because we feel like we can control it better. But there are some very, very high quality sources of organic materials around the world. You just have to be more careful when you're doing that because of certification agencies and all that. Yeah.
Being virtuous is great, but one thing about conventional agriculture is that they feed a lot of people, and same with renewable energy versus fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, if everybody switched to organic right now, obviously we wouldn't be able to sustain that. Do you feel like there's a practical upper limit to your growth at any rate, given that restraint?
Well, clearly to move to organic agriculture takes time. It's a different kind of farming. There's a 3-year time frame to transition somebody over to organic. My feeling about that is that the amount of installed acreage, if you will, in the U.S. hasn't been growing, and globally hasn't been growing as fast as it needs to support overall demand. There's no question about that. The way we're dealing with that is we're down to the farm level, working with and contracting farmers and getting them into a conversion cycle for their products. There's a lot of research out there. There's a view that is not necessarily supported by all the research that says that that organic agriculture can't be as productive in the totality as conventional. When you look at the total of all the externalities that are involved with conventional agriculture, and then you look at the most effective organic farming models, the yield differences are not that significant. And organic farming is just, it's harder, it's more difficult. It's breaking down cultural barriers in communities like mine in Chico where no one was doing it. I don't know if any of you know Lundberg Farms. Anybody buy Lundberg organic rice? Okay, so those guys, when I was getting sprayed with pesticides and sitting on the back of a D7 cat during the summer, I went on a farm field day over to Lundberg Farms, and this has got to be like in the late 70s or mid 70s. And people looked at these guys like one-eyed aliens. Like, what are you guys doing? And they were relatively small then. And just over the years, they've created this whole system that is incredibly productive. And they've changed views about how to farm. It takes a long time to change those views because, trust me, strapping down the conventional herbicides and just blasting it on and putting it down, and it's easy to farm conventionally. It's a lot easier. Organic's a lot harder. Sure.
Hi, I just wanted to say I don't have a lot of emotional connections to most brands, but I just want to thank you for helping me feed my family and being healthy.
Woo! Thank you. Thank you. That's the best part of thank you so much. That's the best part of this job, trust me, is we really do have an impact. And I get letters every week, many, from people whose kids they may have autism or they have issues that they're helping correct by managing diet, taking chemicals out of diets, and it's the most fulfilling thing about what we do. Thank you. Yeah.
You actually stole a little bit of my thunder. Allie Bloomfield-Meyer, class of 2011, and I came into contact with Annie's in a small health food store in San Francisco on Potrero Hill in the early 90s, and think of the brand as whatever product I want. If it's Annie's, I know what I'm getting, so I don't have to read the label quite so hard. My question is actually looking forward. You said food is personal. Something that's been affecting my family is gluten sensitivity. And there's a lot of discussion right now. We're starting in a direction of sugar is bad, carbohydrates are bad. What are you thinking about that subject as you think about your business?
Well, we have a line of, in each one of our categories, we try to offer gluten-free products. They have to taste good. The big problem with gluten-free, a lot of it doesn't taste very good. So we're pretty picky about what we'll do. But we know gluten sensitivity is a big thing, and our gluten-free items in each one of our categories, mac and cheese, bars, fruit snacks, whatever, are very, very successful. And if you step back, and I've been around and come from this conventional world that I told you about, what's interesting to me is I see consumer demand driven by people like you that are worried about these sensitivities. And I asked myself, like, when I was in my little elementary school in Chico, did I know anybody that had a peanut allergy? Did you know anybody with allergies? I didn't know anybody with allergies. Maybe they were allergic to poison oak. But now we talk to people. I mean, it's incredible how much that has changed, and it's impossible to know exactly why it's changed, but it has changed. And what you can also do in that time is you can look at the changes in the food supply here since the mid-90s and even before. And there's been massive changes in the food supply that most people don't understand. Genetically modified ingredients being one of the biggest ones that are in virtually all processed food. And our position on GMOs, for example, is not a popular one with conventional food. We don't use them. We think that thank you. I know this is a sympathetic audience for that, right? You come to Berkeley and you say, hey, we're not really all in on GMOs, and everybody says thumbs up. Then I was a guest speaker at a big agricultural conference about a year and a half ago in Chicago. And they looked at me like that one-eyed alien, like, what the hell are you talking about? But my point is that there's a lot of things that have gone on in our food supply that we really don't truly understand, and it's going to take decades to figure it out. Our position is, you know what? Let's not wait to figure it out. Let's give people the alternative to avoid those things if they want, and a lot of consumers are doing that, whether it's gluten, dairy, obviously synthetic ingredients. So thank you. Yeah, one more.
So you mentioned Walmart. And all the things that you mentioned today, if I look at Whole Foods, I feel very good about Annie's. If I look at Safeway, I'm kind of okay. But if I look at Annie's at Walmart, I'm like, I don't know. Do you think, because I feel Walmart's brand and core values are so conflicting, what you mentioned, am I the only one, or have you come across something?
No. We've gotten that question before. It kind of goes back to the original founding mission of Annie's. Like, when we were in the very beginning, and even when I've got there, which was still kind of the very beginning, we were always worried about getting crushed. the biggest impact that we always wanted to have was if we could be successful with a business model like this, we could influence change. We could have, like in many ways, big, huge conventional competitors copying what we're doing is the biggest change we can make because we're leveraging ourselves to a much bigger world. So, if you look at right now, Walmart is by far the biggest seller of organics in the US, by far. And it's because of the sheer number of stores that they reach and also the socioeconomic levels that they reach in different places. So we think that we really need to be there. We think that there are a lot of things that Walmart does actually that are very progressive as it relates to sustainability. They are leading in a lot of ways. There clearly are a lot of practices that they've had historically that we don't feel good about. But we also need to make sure that we are where consumers want to find us. And so those are the choices you have to make. We haven't had any, over the years, any blowback from being there. We've had a lot of consumers like you ask that question. But it's not, they're not one of our top 3 customers. We have a lot of upside there, where I'd say we're small compared to most CPG firms there. Are we done? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.